So, ladies and gentlemen, let's get right into this one because the reality checks for the socialists just keep on coming. The talk is always about taxing the wealthy residents to pay for their government programs as if these people are permanently attached to the city or state they're in. And the only question is how much money the socialists can extract from them for said programs geared toward making more people more dependent on government. The very idea that these people think it would be smart governing with no repercussions to keep taxing the millionaires and billionaires whom you admit you depend on to fund your socialist agenda is really backward logic. Now, you would think, if you were trying to at least do it somewhat successfully, that you would focus on making the pie larger, expanding the tax base, but they do the opposite. And what ends up happening is that you push away the very people you need. But this is something socialists choose to ignore. They think they can simply dismiss it, but you can't. You can't do that. And now a new report is exposing the fatal flaw behind New York's entire tax-the-rich political agenda. Because this report shows that New York shares of America's million-dollar earners fell from 12.7 to 8.7%, the largest decline of any state. And that creates a massive problem for socialists like Zoran Mamdani, whose entire economic agenda depends on treating wealthy taxpayers as though they are permanently trapped inside his city. And so, as always, if you enjoy the content, smash that thumbs up button. That's the best way to let me know. Subscribe for more videos. Let's start right here.
Liberal cities, because they want to tax everybody so much, and it's forcing people to leave. So look at the stats in New York. This is the millionaire exodus, they're calling it. Back in 2010, number of millionaires living in this city, 12.7%. Look at 2022, and this is just a few years ago. I think that number is probably even lower now. Only 8.7% are millionaires in our city now. A lot of people left during COVID, but a lot of people are leaving now because this guy was elected, and he wants to tax people making $300,000 or more.
Yeah, and these are people that are making $1 million or more that this study found. And look, this mayor, the city council, the DA, they haven't made it better for the city. And as a result of this, I think there's really no incentive to stay in New York. After COVID, a lot of these businesses realized they could be mobile, so a lot of them closed up their shop here. The rent prices are way too high as a result of all the taxation, and people just found Florida, Texas, Tennessee, better places to live.
That's right. And it's not only living here, LJ, it's also investing here. And we were just showing that video that was so controversial of Mamdani out front of Citadel CEO Ken Griffin's home, his apartment building. This is it right here. And he's blasting by name Ken Griffin, who's one of the biggest investors in New York City. But he also has headquarters in Miami. In his response to that video where Mamdani's hailing his wealth tax against guys like Ken Griffin said, okay, fine, I'm pulling an investment I was about to make in New York, and I'm moving that and spinning operations down in Miami, in Florida.
Well, these are not just numbers that one organization has come up with. These are numbers from the IRS and from federal data trackers. So this is real. New York lost roughly $11 billion in tax revenue in one single year. Florida, that's the premier destination. Looks like Texas might be number 2. They're fleeing because of wealth. They made $21 billion in net interstate wealth in 2023. So 3 years ago, all these New Yorkers or Northeasterners moved down there. They made $21 billion. New York is losing on average $11 billion.
So, of course, he's not taking accountability, the mayor of New York. He's just dismissing these concerns. Here he is.
You know, the first time that I met Councilwoman Carmen De La Rosa was when we were both serving in the New York State Assembly, and that was the year when we were advocating to increase taxes on the wealthiest New Yorkers by raising income taxes on those who made more than $1 million across our city and state. And we were told then that if we were to do that, that we would have fewer millionaires in the years to come. And what we found is after passing that and raising billions of dollars that helped our state to finally meet the terms of the Campaign for Fiscal Equity, that we in fact had more millionaires than we had prior.
He's so delusional. I mean, you're dismissing the millionaires and the billionaires, but you want them to pay for all these programs. So you got to invite them to the table. You got to give them incentives. I don't think the wealthy people in this country have any problem with investing or paying more for certain things. But they got to be a part of the story. You can't just force things down people's throat and have us pay for it. I think there's this notion around, not just in New York, but across the country now, of punishing people's success instead of, achieving it yourself.
And Mamdani talks about his famous quote about the warmth of collectivism, which absolutely flies in the face of individual opportunity for the successes of guys like King Griffin and others that bring their money here to New York City.
Well, a lot of this is because you can work from home now. So there are a lot of people that are flying to New York for the big meetings, but spending at least more than 50% so they can pay taxes down in Florida and not the high taxes in New York. They're able to work from home. Many people are working remotely. It's also because of real estate. Florida's real estate is so beautiful. People want to live in Florida. It's so green and lush. You're surrounded by the water. The weather is good. A lot of New Yorkers want to get out because they're tired of the snow. But I think we're going to see more of an exodus because there are a lot of people that live in New York that want to be in Florida but can't pull their kids out of school yet, or they're waiting on their children to go to college. They're waiting to retire, and then they're going to head to Florida because this is just going to get worse and worse. New York is getting to where we're electing these progressives, and they're getting more and more progressive. So it's just getting more and more left-leaning, and that's drawing people to Florida.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and break this down because that report was from 2010 to 2022, ladies and gentlemen. And so you do have to account for 4 years and ask, do you believe things are getting better and more millionaires are moving back into New York, looking to invest, looking to actually help the city grow, or are they leaving? And I mean, I would have to lean towards they're probably not looking at New York right now as a viable option. Here's the key: as much as other places around the country. And so that's the thing that you got to understand. This is not merely a matter of, does New York City still have millionaires, billionaires, wealthy individuals for Mamdani to tax? I'm going to say this, and anybody who tries and say differently, they're just fear-mongering you. New York will always have a rich tax base. There are always going to be some billionaires and some millionaires who live in New York City. That is not the question, or that is not what we are talking about. What we're talking about is the rate at which those people are choosing to stay and remain in New York versus go to another city, go to another state, because they have better options. And that's the nuance of this entire thing. But take a listen to Mamdani and how he tries to spin it. Then I'll come back. Check it out.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. So why hasn't the homeless encampment near the Intrepid been cleared, especially after this new policy that they're supposed to be after 7 days? And then secondly, there was a CBC report that showed the Empire State's share of nation's millionaires declined more than any other state from 2010 to 2022. And if it had remained the same, the state would have collected $10.7 billion more in taxes in 2022. Every other U.S. state has gained more residents from New York than it's lost to New York. So what is the city doing to attract more, and what conflicts do you see with taxes such as PAT and increasing more taxes when we're seeing flight already?
You know, the first time that I met Councilwoman Carmen De La Rosa was when we were both serving in the New York State Assembly, and that was the year when we were advocating to increase taxes on the wealthiest New Yorkers by raising income taxes on those who made more than $1 million across our city and state. And we were told then that if we were to do that, that we would have fewer millionaires in the years to come. And what we found is after passing that and raising billions of dollars that helped our state to finally meet the terms of the Campaign for Fiscal Equity, that we in fact had more millionaires than we had prior. So I think the conversation will always continue. I've been very clear about the fact that we live in the wealthiest city in the wealthiest country in the history of the world, and it's unacceptable that 1 in 4 New Yorkers are living in poverty. And I believe that the wealthiest can do a little bit more to ensure that everyone can afford to live here.
Yeah, so you just heard that. And so here's what Mamdani's trying to sell you. He's trying to sell you on this idea that they did the study, and after all this talk about taxing the millionaires and how they will leave, it's actually showing that they have more millionaires now, which I'll give him this. He's not lying. That's true. They have more millionaires as far as a total than they've had before. That's 100% true, ladies and gentlemen. But that is not the question. That's not the core issue here. The core issue is New York's competitiveness problem, ladies and gentlemen. This is what I was referring to before. Because the question is, why are states like Florida and Texas expanding their millionaire tax base faster than New York? And so take a look at this, ladies and gentlemen. At the same time that New York was able to double their millionaire tax base, Texas tripled theirs and Florida quadrupled theirs. And so the rate at which millionaires are choosing Florida or Texas vastly outperforms New York. And that is the real core issue right there, ladies and gentlemen. There's always going to be millionaires looking to set up shop in New York. It's New York City. I mean, I get it. Like I said, I lived across the bridge in New Jersey. I get the allure of wanting to be in New York. That's going to exist. The problem becomes when that attraction starts to dwindle and become less and less and less and less. And what does that mean? That means now your tax base becomes less and less and less and less. The tax base that he depends on for all his socialist programs to take care of free health care, government-run grocery stores, free child care, all these social programs that he says are going to just make life so fair and create the socialist utopia that he's promised everyone. But let's jump into this next clip. You got the governor of New York, Kathy Hochul. She was confronted on this study in the Millionaire Exodus. And so take a listen to this. Check it out.
Can we talk about the latest report from the Citizens Budget Commission? And I know you're very aware of this and sensitive to big businesses leaving New York City. Their latest report basically said wealthy individuals are moving out, families are moving out, and single filers are coming in. People who really can't afford New York City are coming here. You had to bail out New York City $8 billion this budget. They're saying they see a $10 billion budget deficit. What do you think? How do we stop this?
Well, first of all, the data that came out is from 2022.
Do you think it's any better? I mean,
No,
we had an $8 billion budget deficit this year.
Let me explain.
Yeah.
Back then, big driver of people leaving, and you could draw a through line from when the Donald Trump administration and Congress got rid of the state and local tax deduction. All of a sudden, everybody in New York paid higher taxes because we used to, since Abraham Lincoln was president, they started the tax code, you never were double taxed. They changed that. So states like New York, you lost that deduction. So it got more expensive to be here just with the signing of that law. 2017, 2019, those are the years when people started the out-migration of businesses and individuals. And then what happens in 2020? Gets slammed with the pandemic. So people who maybe had a vacation home or a temporary home in Palm Beach said, I'm moving my whole family here. I mean, the city's falling apart here. Everybody's getting sick. I'm not staying there. So there's an interesting trend, right, that drove that factor.
You don't think that's a problem now?
But here I am today. I am doing what I can to stop that because I believe that we should not be raising taxes on high net worth individuals. We should not be raising taxes on the companies that are creating the jobs and generating the revenue that helps us pay for the services that people in New York City come to rely on. So I've taken a different approach. I want to expand the pie. I'm letting businesses know that we want you to succeed here. We also have to make sure that all New Yorkers succeed. So this is a pro-New Yorker approach, is to encourage the businesses to stay. And we've had more technology companies signing long-term leases in the last 3 months than any time in history.
I'm going to need to see the data on these companies she's saying that are signing these long-term leases at a historic pace. I'm going to need to see that because Kathy Hochul, she's playing with the truth when she tells you that President Trump got rid of local and state tax deductions. And that's why wealthy New Yorkers started to leave New York back then in his first term. That was not the case, ladies and gentlemen. What President Trump did in 2017 with the Tax Cut and Jobs Act was he capped the deduction at $10,000. The cap affected high-income residents in places like high-tax states, New York, because they could no longer deduct all of their state income taxes, their property taxes from their federal taxable income. And so what actually happened was federal tax benefits got reduced for these high earning individuals. The very benefits that were helping to offset the high state and local taxes that, yes, New York is responsible for. That's their policy. And so once the deduction was actually capped, New Yorkers were forced to fill New York's actual tax burden, which many of them didn't like. And that is the reason why they end up leaving. So that's a state problem that she doesn't want to take accountability for. Your local, your state taxes, property taxes, that sort of thing. I mean, hey, that's going to drive people out one way or another. And same thing with the whole COVID, that she's trying to then remove herself from that. Once again, different states handled that issue different ways. Some states stayed more open than others. In the South, you tended to see more of it where states were at least on some level staying open. Maybe not completely open, but they weren't shut down 100% like what you had in New York. And I was right across the bridge in New Jersey during that time, and it was awful. Awful in New Jersey too, which you couldn't really do anything for a certain amount of time. And in the South, it was at least some level of movement. And so, yeah, once again, that comes back down to your state governing. So there's all these excuses on why people are leaving, why your tax base is shrinking, why things are going left. The main, I think at the end of the day, what we're coming to the conclusion of, it has to do with the Democrat leadership there. That's the reason why it's going downhill. But those are my thoughts on the update. And I want to hear from you. Drop your comment down below. Don't forget, enjoy the content. Smash that thumbs up. For more, subscribe to the channel. And as always, until next time.